Welcome to chess, ladies and gentlemen. All right, man, I appreciate everybody very much for stopping by. So I did go back a couple years, and I do have a 2020 FIDE chess Olympiad. They played this online, of course, as you guys know. 2020 was, they really didn't do anything in person at all. So they did play this, online. And so I have Wesley So versus Vassily Ivanchuk. You know, one of the legends. I'm pretty sure I did him as my chess legend. I'm going to check after this video. But I think I already put him up. But he's definitely been in the game for a really long time. Pretty legendary figure. As you guys probably know, he did drop checkmate in one against Viswanathan Anand back in the early 90s. Crazy. If you haven't seen the video, go look at it. But anyways, for all of my people that are coming from the Philippines, I will say Maligan Young Pak Dating Sa my chess, ladies and gentlemen. Mabuhay. Kamusta na, aking magkaibigan? I appreciate you guys very much for stopping by. Magandang umaga to you. Magandang kapon. It is about to get afternoon over there in like 20 minutes. So I appreciate you guys very much for stopping by. Anybody who is coming from Ukraine or who does speak Ukrainian, I would say privet and spasibi. I appreciate you guys very much for stopping by. Best wishes to everybody in Ukraine. But if you guys are ready to go, let's take a look and see what we have for this game. Let me get my volume up because I didn't check again. Bam. Okay. All right. So we do have e4. We got e6. So we have the French defense. And you know what? I'm going to have to be honest with you. Personally, I think the French defense is the strongest defense that you can play to e4. People will argue with me. They'll say it's the Sicilian. No, it's, the open, the king's pawn. I mean, everybody has their own opinions, but like I said, I think that the French is the strongest thing you can play against e4, and I formerly played it myself. I might go back. I don't know. We do see d4. We got d5. Pretty much like 90% of games that you see that are in the French defense are going to go in this fashion. This is going to be the strongest way that you can play against what white is doing when you do go into the French. We do see knight to d2, and this is known as the Tarrasch variation. Some of you guys who do play this as white, there is also a knight to c3, but bishop to b4 can be a real bother sometimes. And you're pretty much, you're good. You're going to probably play bishop to d3 or even go the advance. Or even, you got some queen to g4s and stuff like that. But sometimes it can be kind of hard to play after bishop takes and you do take it back with the pawn. And you do kind of have some issues on this e4 square. So, some people do prefer to go knight to d2. And then they can meet bishop to b4 with just simply playing c3. They're both really, really great ways to play. We do see c5, just attacking this center that white has established as early as possible. And this is almost always going to come whenever you do see a French. Really pretty much any way white goes, you're going to be seeing c5 coming. You have to try to, combat this center. And a lot of the times when you do push c3, you can trade on the d4 square, and then white starts to pile on some attackers with queen to b6 or knight to c6 and stuff like that. Knight G comes to f3, and then the crazy thing is we're four moves in, and we see a knight to f6, and this is the novelty of the game. 4 moves in, and this game was just played 2 years ago. So, I think that's pretty crazy, how we are only just 4 moves into the game and we already see a novelty. We do see pawn takes d5, knight takes d5, we got knight to b3, because of course, if we see pawns capturing here, we're going to be looking at knight b capturing d4, and that is what we do see. Pawn takes d4, knight b takes d4. We see bishop to b4, and we're not worried. We're just going to go ahead and cover with this bishop. We do see castles by black. And then, basically, Wesley So says, since you didn't move your bishop, here goes a pawn in your face. So back it up, son. So we do see bishop coming back to d6. We see bishop to c4. Knight comes to b6. We got to do something with this bishop because the bishop is kind of just hanging out in space by itself. And it is attacked by the knight. So we do see bishop back to d3. We see knight 8 to d7. We see queen to e2. And it's somewhat critical in this position. You do have to be very careful about the way that you play. You can't play a really passive move The problem with the position is you have this bishop on d6 and it is undefended at the moment. So if we actually see e5 played in the game, which pretty much gets rid of, you know, the tactic that is possible in the position. But let's just say we play like a lazy move just for the sake of, like, you know, demonstrating. Let's say we play a6, right? You're going to be looking at knight takes e6. And the problem with knight takes e6 is you are forking this queen and this rook. So you pretty much have to capture on e6. And after you do, the queen is going to take e6, king sidesteps over to h8, and then the queen does take d6. And you have actually won 2 pawns. So this is a completely superior position for white. So we do not want to fall into that. So like I said, Ivanchuk did go e5. He was recognizing that e6 was a problem. So let me go ahead and push it and start to get some attack rolling. So we do see bishop to g5. Nice little Zwischenzug move. The bishop goes back to e7. We see bishop takes e7, queen takes e7, and then we do see long castles. At the moment, this queen is undefended. So, you know, we can castle, we can do what we need to do. We are not worried about the pawn capturing here because, like I said, the queen is undefended. So it would just be dropping. So we do see knight to d5. We see knight over to f5. Queen goes to c5. And then we see a very subtle move, bishop back to c2. And this is putting black in a position. I mean, there are a lot of moves that you can play in this position, but it does, you have to play a specific type of way. You have to recognize that if this rook is captured, let's say you play another lazy move like a6 or something like that, and this knight is captured, the queen capturing back would run into knight to e7, and that would be forking the king and the queen on this square. So we have to make sure that we do something about it. But like I said, there's a lot of things you can do. I mean, you know, there's knight over here to f6. There's this knight back. There's even knight to f4, which, I mean, actually is probably one of the better moves. Knight 7 to f6 allows the queen to take on e5, so it is not the absolute best. Like I said, knight to f4 does a good job of attacking the queen and also attacking this undefended pawn. So you're probably going to go queen to e3, and then the queen takes, pawn takes, and stuff. And I mean, you have a really interesting game going on. But like I said, this does allow the pawn to be captured, and you're really just up a pawn. You see the rook step over to e8. You see the queen coming to d4 because, hey, I'm up a pawn. Let's trade pieces, of course. But Ivanchuk says, I don't want none of that, man. I'm going to go queen to a5. I'm going to attack, you know, tickle this pawn over here, force you to do something about it. The knight comes up to d6 after we see the rook going to d8. We do see knight over to e4. And we have some threats on the board. So as you can see, like every time Wesley So is making a move, he's adding threats to the position. I mean, you're threatening, you know, knight captures here with check, the knight capturing back, and then the queen taking the rook on d8. Especially if this queen does this here, it's going to be lights out. So we do see bishop down to g4. The bishop comes up to b3. We are protecting our pawn now, and we're adding some attackers onto d5. Rook a comes to c8. We see queen up to e5. The knight takes e4. Rook takes d5. You know, you have to be careful because if the rook takes here, you know, you're going to be taking this knight. So, I mean, it's pretty dicey. So we do see knight coming back to c5. We see rook h to d1. We see rook over to e8 because why not threaten the queen? We got queen down to d4. And then we have bishop up to e6. And then we do have, actually, interestingly enough, the final move of the game, rook over to g5. And I'm going to have to be 1,000% honest with you. I could not find a video on this game, so I'm not sure if Ivanchuk just said, man, this is looking pretty bad for me, I resign, or what the situation was. He must have sat there and thought, we flipped the board. He must have sat there and looked at this and said, okay, man, you know what? This is checkmate. F6 is not helping me because the queen can just capture. And he must have just kind of did some like real short calculation and came to this conclusion. But, I mean, at the end of the day, this position is perfectly fine for black. You know, white definitely has, you know, a better position, but they are not just completely steamrolling you by any means, and I'll show you exactly why. But you know, okay, so I'm not going to do that because I pretty much just gave the answer away. I won't do against the move in this game. I was going to stop it here and say, guess, you know, what black can actually do. A lot of you guys probably did see f6. You know, thought that might be a legitimate move, but, you know, it doesn't really stop checkmate because after f6, the queen can just capture here, which is true. But Black actually has a really, really nice attack going on themselves. So f6 and then queen taking on f6 is not the complete end of the game, and I'll show you why. So if you did think about the move f6, then you would be correct on that. That is the absolute best move that you can play in the position. It's one of the only moves. After you see f6, if you do see queen taking f6, you would actually see knight taking b3 with check. And then, I mean, the basic, it's funny because the best move in the position is actually king up to c2. But, I mean, you do have some attacks rolling with that, and you are able to check here. You're able to move the rook down to laterally defend because you have opened everything up. But if we do capture on b3, this would be absolutely deadly because the queen would come down with check on a1. The king would go up to c2. And the crazy thing is you can actually, capture on b3 with the bishop. And this just brings the king out into the open. The king takes on b3, and then the queen takes on d1. And, I mean, I don't want to be in this position, personally, like, if I'm white. Because where do you go with your king? You're going to have to step somewhere undesirable. The queen can always come up here and defend the checkmate. And you are really just down an exchange. And you just have one pawn for it. So it's not winning at all. This is super duper great for white or for black. And this is not where you want to be. So, like I said, I think that he just calculated f6 doesn't really work because queen takes f6 and he just was thinking, oh, I'm getting mated. And he just needed to go like another move or two further and started to look at his own chances. And it would have been a little bit different. So, yes, that is that game. I appreciate everybody very much for stopping by. It was a pretty short game, short and sweet. So Malaka see Wesley So. Malaka see, Vassily Ivanchuk as well, because he's definitely, like I said, a legend. And I will be checking to make sure that I did him as my chess legend. But I appreciate everybody very much. Maraming salamat aking makaibigan. And spasibi. And I'll see you guys next time.